the city council. But in addition to that, there is an aviation and transit board that was established as a citizens advisory board representing 7 members representing the city, providing advice and consultation directly with city staff. And they are also charged with forming policy regarding matters pertaining to the airport as well as Billings Metropolitan Transit. They're also charged with ensuring those policies are being implemented and carried out and making recommendations back to the city council. In the operation, the Aviation and Transit Department of this city oversees the day-to-day operations of the airport. There's approximately 56 employees of that department that are dedicated to that airport operation. Here on the slide, we present an organizational chart of what that looks like today. This department is also supported by other departments of the city, being primarily the city administration, finance, human resources, and information technology. So what does airport governance look like in the state of Montana and across the nation? Well, there are numerous forms of governing models, but primarily what we're seeing as far as trends go is a distinct move from what we would call a municipal model, being cities and counties, to a special purpose model like airport authorities. So over the past 30 years, there's been about 16 to be 17 airports that have chosen to transfer their model. These are all commercial service airports from that municipal model to that special purpose airport authority to be dedicated and independent of the municipality creating them. Importantly here is that all of those airports that have transitioned during that period, none of them have gone back to a municipal model. Here as well, we also looked at the state of Montana and what is taking place in the state of Montana. And in fact, only the city of Billings as a hub airport is the only hub airport that is not operated as an airport authority in your state. But across the country, as I said, there are numerous models. Your airport falls right in between the small hub and the non-hub categories. What those are the share of overall enplanements of the passenger boardings across the country, and that's broken down into the various hub sizes. Small hubs are approximately about 500,000 to 2.5 million enplanements, or non-hub are around 10,000 to that 500,000 mark. And you're right at that top end near the 500,000, and in the past have actually been categorized as a small hub. So with that context here, you can see in the small hub that there's about 38% of the airports that are currently operated by airport authorities, and for the non-hubs about 26% respectively. Whereas in the city you have 26% and 24%. So very similar, but again, there's a distinct move from that city model to that authority model over the past 30 years. That brings us to the state legislation and what state law actually says the city can and cannot do in its operation of the airport. And there are 2 primary chapters within Title 67 that denote this. Chapter 10 grants municipalities like the city the powers to operate the airport, whereas Chapter 11 enables the creation of either a municipal airport authority or a regional airport authority. So here today, what we are considering is that municipal airport authority model. Just a touch on the regional airport authority, that would have to be formed jointly with another municipality. So it could be the city and a county combined or multiple cities. So it'd be a regional airport authority. Whereas the municipal, the city of Billings itself can create independently based on that state law. So what does that look like? Well, if the city decides to move forward, they would have to pass a resolution following a public hearing. So we would first have that public hearing, pass the resolution. In that resolution, it would denote the number of commissioners that would serve on the airport authority. There's a minimum requirement of 5 commissioners to serve on that board, serving 5-year terms. I'd like to point out that the initial appointments would be staggered. During that initial appointment, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 if you were to appoint 5 members, and a little bit different if there's more from that. But upon the expiration of those terms, this board would be appointing another member to that commission as well. So it would keep coming back on an annual basis, relative about 1 to 2 appointments in any given year. One of the really important considerations in deciding whether a governance change is a good fit for your community is whether or not the airport itself is financially self-sustaining. And in fact, your airport is. It has been for quite some time. And we present some of the operating revenues here from fiscal year of 22 to 25. You've seen a growth of about 1.9 million to 4.2 million in your operating cash flow. So that's all the operating revenues and the expenses of the airport, separate from the capital expenses. And of that, you have a really good mix of aeronautical and non-aeronautical revenue, with about 63% and 25 coming from non-aeronautical. The reason that we like to see this is that that helps offset your aeronautical costs, really promoting that air service development that we're looking for here. The other area of the operating budget is the city service charges to the airport. So there are several, from the cost allocation plan charges that are all the various departmental charges back to the aviation and transit department, as well as other things like property insurance, IT charges, as well. So that in total is about 700,000, and you'll see the cost allocation plan category is about 294,000. So these are currently paid by the airport back to the city of Billings for its operation. As we look to the future of the airport and how is it going to develop, you have about 99.3 million on your capital improvement program. There's a mix of federal, local funding coming from this, as well as passenger facility charges and customer facility charges that are used for various capital improvements. One of the biggest projects you have upcoming is your parking garage project. And that's going to be for the planning, design, and construction of it, estimated around $34 million, almost 33% of that total capital improvement plan during that period. Another financial consideration, what is the existing debt and the bond obligations as well? So you have two of them, and they're presented here on the slide, and there's approximately just shy of $3 million as of July of last year. So that has been reduced since that time. But these were the numbers that were provided to us that were most up to date. But in addition to this, you do have a separate account that is used as a reserve account as well. And there's a little over $2 million in reserve account. So you're getting very close here to being able to pay off the debt service that you currently have. And that could be a consideration if you decide to move forward, where you could pay off this debt in advance as well. And that brings us to some transition cost estimates. So in the event that the city decides to transition, there is going to be a need for at least one new position, and we see that as being the HR manager. It's a position that the airport currently does not have, and relies on the City Department of Human Resources for. So we put in an estimated figure as to what that would cost the airport, inclusive of salary and benefits. We also looked at, well, there's going to have to be a title certification to transfer the title over to the airport as well, and provide an opinion of a good title. And that's estimated about 10,000. So in total, with all of these different things, with some reductions from the city services, so as the airport brings on more responsibility in the operation of the airport, we're looking at about $200,000 in year one, and some savings estimated in year two, as we look to the future in the operation of the airport. Another really important part of this project was our stakeholder input initiative. And what we did on that was really look at all of the different areas in the operation of the airport, from the people that are there day to day, the employees of the airport, to the city administration, as well as members of the city council, aviation and transit board, and airport tenants, as well as regional organizations. So we worked with Jeff and the management team to identify who all these groups were and got contact information. And what we found from that is, from all the input, is that overall the airport and the leadership team are doing very well. And the community really identifies the airport as being a strength to the community. The airport also is recognized for the recent improvements, so all the terminal enhancements that have been done. But at the same time, there's a desire to improve the parking there, and that's what the parking garage project is intended to do, as well as provide more air service offerings. When we asked about the aviation transit board from these groups, there really was some understanding that it's underutilized and that the role really wasn't very clear to the stakeholders as a whole as to what it is doing itself for the city and for the operation of the airport. So I would say a general lack of understanding on what the aviation and transit board itself is and what it should be doing. Overall, the City Council is very supportive of the airport and its operations and initiatives. However, based on the input that we received, that the speed of business is hindered by the approval process itself, and along with the decision-making timelines that take place for various agreements and contracts and establishing new positions and so forth that would be improved upon under an airport authority model. When we asked about regional participation, going back to that regional airport authority concept, the stakeholders in general were a little resistant towards that concept and preferred that the city of Billings retain more of the appointments on an airport authority board if it were to be created, and rather than seeking that partnership with another municipality. There is an overall belief that in a governance transition that there would be operational personnel as well as structural benefits in changing the model, and overall desire for changes to enhance the operation of the airport. So what are the benefits of changing the model? The committee and discussion and deliberation on this through all the findings have identified several. So number one, it's going to align the governing model with best practices of the industry today, promoting competition with those other airports, both in the state and nationally. So we know all the other commercial service airports in the state are operated by an authority, and there was a distinct desire from both the committee as well as stakeholders seeking that out to be more competitive. It's also going to help address some inefficiencies by reducing redundant layers of bureaucracy that exist today through the governance structure. It's also going to allow the airport to function as closely as possible to a private business entity model without compromising transparency or public accountability. The reason being is that it's still a public body corporate, it still has to perform annual audits, and it has to have open meetings. So it is a public body, but it's about as close as you can get to that business model here in our country, while still having that transparency, that is. The authority model also promotes a greater emphasis on economic development and participation with regional economic development agencies and organizations as well, sometimes even having representatives of the community and the business industry on those authority boards, and the authority board itself having qualifications to serve. That would be established by the city council. Overall, that authority would provide a better focus on strategic initiatives and thus improving customer service. So being independent from the city is going to make it even more so reliant on itself for its own operations, its own revenues. So what does that mean? You need to provide good customer service so that way you can enhance and grow your revenues to sustain your operations. And it also is one of the only ways in your state to provide a model to operate independent from the city itself. And there's a number of benefits that are really associated with that, particularly related to the organizational structure and having that independence. So the ultimate baseline of a city and its operations and all the other things that are going on in the department are distinctly different from the operation of the airport. And this is a model that allows it to operate more independently. So in conclusion, from all of the research and analysis that we performed for the governance review, there are no distinct barriers for the Billings Logan International Airport to change the model should the city decide to do so. In recap here, it's operating self-sufficiently within its own enterprise fund, requiring no money from the city general fund to operate. There's existing state law in place for the city to consider to adopt, being the municipal airport authority model. The stakeholder input and a majority of stakeholders are supportive of this change. We've heard from numerous people here today in public comment as well that were in support. And there are certainly benefits that are going to exist through this change for the operation of the airport related to the management structure, organizational structure, establishing strategic initiatives and goals for that management team to follow as well. With that, I'd just reiterate that the Airport Governance Advisory Committee recommends that the City Council consider moving forward with the Municipal Airport Authority governance model for the operation of the airport.
Thank you. Mr. Roach, you have anything for us?
I would just say that if the council decides to move forward and pass the resolution, this is the next steps that would occur with the phase 2 of the project. Phase 2 would be a two-pronged effort whereby the city council would work with our consultant and our administration to form an airport authority and lay out the structure of that. Then we would also simultaneously go through the FAA application process. One of the key things associated with the FAA application process is this is not a sale from the city to the airport authority. This is not a transfer. This is the city council deciding that the airport authority will operate the airport into the future. The airport authority will retain all of the assets that are currently owned and operated by the airport for the city of Billings. And we would move forward with that understanding. There's no other type of transition that would occur, as was mentioned erroneously in comments earlier this evening. This is what that would look like in a flow chart as we move through the different steps of creating the operational structure, forming the authority, standing up the governance model, and then getting FAA approval for that transition. One of the reasons that the FAA has that application process in place is because in the past, some cities have tried to funnel resources off of the airport during that transition. That is not allowed by federal law or regulation. It is those assets that belong to the airport under the city sponsorship will belong to the airport under the airport authority. It's just under a different sponsorship.
And I would add to that, that is in large part facilitated through an assignment and an assumption agreement whereby the city would assign and the authority would assume all of the obligations related to the federal grants. So the FAA would be looking for that, knowing that they would now hold the operating certificate if the city decides to move forward.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Do we have any questions for our presenters? Start with you, Mr. Pittman.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, Council. So I'm going to consider this, and my perspective on looking at this is the work session presentation that we're being given. There's still a lot of questions out there and the concerns I have. One of the things you talked about was that you had reached out to stakeholders, but within that, I didn't see the public in general, going to task force, going and explaining this process to the employees. I don't know if we've had engagement.
That has all occurred.
You sat with all of the staff?
We've had meetings with our employees to discuss the transition. We've had presentations to multiple groups within the community, including the Rimrock Task Force, which was just last week when we did that presentation that included this. So what
was the feedback from
the feedback has generally been positive. There have been a few that have, due to lack of understanding and some of the things that they've heard, have formed opinions that are not based on actual facts, like that this is going to be a sale to the airport authority or that the airport authority is a private entity. We've tried to clear those up, but some of those misconceptions still occur. But in general, overwhelmingly, the bodies have supported the transition through the comments that I've received.
Right. Follow up.
Go ahead.
So this isn't change in management and management style. This is a whole different structure. One of the things that you were talking about is what the cost would be to the airport to do this. But I guess as we just completed the budget, what are the costs back to the city that are going to impact all of the different departments and their budgets? And this might go to the city administrator at this point, because I'm sure we do governmental transfer for HR, payroll, legal, police, fire, whatever.
So Councilmember Pittman, Mayor and Council. So yes, there are internal service overhead charges at the airport, like Public Works, like each of our departments do pay for. So ultimately, what the relationship would look like going forward, whether it's on a contracted basis, whether it's completely separate, those details have not been worked out. But to answer your question specifically to the budget, yes, there are internal service charges that happen, and the anticipation is for some period of time that would continue. I could have Andy get back, and I've got a ballpark number. But like I said, I haven't seen anything that says, okay, you passed this resolution this evening, and now come effective July 1, those relationships are severed. I don't believe that's the case at all. I believe that's part of what gets worked out in the next phase of this process. But there are overhead charges, not unique to the airport, but happen with all of our non-central services.
And Mr. Pittman and Council, those charges are based on services that the airport receives. So in essence, those that are determined in the future to be taken on by the airport authority rather than having the city perform those services would free up city employees that are currently doing work for the airport.
So just to follow up. So that's kind of to my point, is we're looking at, do we need additional staff? Do we need more people in HR and these different things? How much of a decrease do we get in income, which cuts all their budgets? Or are we actually not going to need some of the employees that are being requested? And those are important questions for us now, because we're making those decisions over this next month as we discuss the budget. So that's kind of a big concern. And it is kind of a quick time frame, because your result was that by June of next year, we'd have this resolved and transitioned, which actually puts a lot of work on our staff, because it's transition of employment, because they may or may not end up being city employees and all of that. So there could be a lot of different things that need to be discussed.
May I?
Doc, do we have an answer to that?
So just one of the slides we had was the breakdown of the cost allocation plan.
That's slide 10. Could you go to that?
Yeah. So
See,
That one right there.
there we go.
So this is the total amount that is currently paid by the airport to the city is $706,000. And all the individual departmental charges are in that cost allocation plan category and broken down for you there. So in the case of human resources, that's about $57,000.
Okay, Dr. Nicholson?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Roach, you run an excellent airport.
Thank you.
I have some questions, though. So I'm sure this would not happen during your watch because you're very fiscally efficient. But at some point in the future, the airport may need a tax levy for one reason or another. That will never happen.
So with the transitions that have occurred with the other airports in Montana, as an example, none of those have gone out and asked the municipal body for a tax levy. The airport is self-sufficient, and there's no reason to believe that at any time in the future that it will not be self-sufficient.
I believe in catastrophes.
Even if a catastrophe
if it were to
occurs.
happen, you would have to go to the city to have that levy. Is that correct?
So there's a couple parts to this. The first being that in the forming resolution, the city would have to put in there that the authority would be able to come back for that tax levy. So if it's not in there, it would not be an option to them. But there is always an option for the city of Billings to provide support to the authority on its own, determined by the council. And that's also provided very distinctly and clearly in state law that there's going to be a relationship there, that this is the parent, so to speak, of the authority, appointing the authority board, and there will be a connection back. And we like to see also that there's an annual report from the authority to the city council updating on what does the annual audit say, what is the budget of the airport, and what are those initiatives that it's working on, so that the council itself is aware of that as well.
But the council wouldn't have control over that. It would be, that money would be controlled by the airport authority instead of the city.
Yeah, so the budget itself would be controlled by the airport authority, but if there was an instance where it needed support, it would be a request of the city.
Yeah, I mean, these are hypotheticals, but.
Yeah.
You mentioned that no airport has ever gone back to municipal status. Is there a way that airport could do that if it needed to?
You'd have to go back through the process, applying to the FAA for a new operating certificate, of course, following your state law as well.
So it could be done.
It could
be done. There are a lot of concerns about the efficiency. That's kind of the main argument. I see. Can you give me some examples of where the current structure has caused major inefficiencies that perhaps cause a business deal to go sour or something like that?
So we've had leases that have been sought by entities at the airport that have been delayed for extended periods of time. To a government entity, it might not be considered to be an extended period of time, but to those businesses and to the financial institution that represent them, they have expressed numerous times that those decisions need to occur much more quickly for them to do business at the airport.
How quickly? Days?
Well, certainly not weeks or even months in some extreme situations.
Could you imagine a situation where the city council could speed those things up?
Not under the existing process that I'm aware of. But another example is that in an efficiency is the way that airport authorities are allowed to compensate employees. So currently, we are restricted to issues that may be important to other departments, but not to the airport, that could impact the functioning of the airport, being able to be operated more efficiently.
Which leads me to another question. Recruitment is a problem at the airport. What would you say the main reason for employees not signing on? benefits, cold winters,
So the positions that we've had,
income, pay, compensation.
so the positions that we've had the most difficulty recruiting for, such as our operations supervisor positions, the issue has been compensation has been too low.
It's more of an indictment of us than you.
How long was that open for, Jeff?
One last
That
question.
position was open for 8 months, as an example.
Yeah, well,
Okay, one
one
more.
last question, and I'll give it back to the rest of the council. Once the authority is set up and there's a governance structure, would it be possible for the authority to change its governing structure?
If I understand your question correctly, is if the authority is created, can it change its own governing structure?
Yeah, so we set up with it, so the city council appoints the commissioners, or, would there be, could the authority change that mix?
Well, I think to your earlier question, like if it were to ever want to go back to the municipal model,
No, sorry, that's not what I questioned. I'll be flat-footed. I don't want the county commissioners to be appointing
okay.
commissioners.
Yeah. So in the case of how you establish that municipal airport authority, that's going to be determined by this council here. So however you establish that in your forming resolution is how that authority will continue to be appointed.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Boyette, Mr. Aspenleiter, Mr. O'Donnell, and Mr. Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess to start out, I'm going to take offense to the part about leasing. I think that's mismanagement from the airport side. They know when a lease is coming up. It's a year lease, 2-year lease. They know when it's coming up. Don't bring it to us the day before, the week before, 2 days before. That's just my comment. But
Councilmember Boyette and Council.
I don't expect a response from that. That was just my 2 cents that I didn't take offense to that. I think it could have been done a lot better over the years that I've been here doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Boyette, but let's not get into a back and
No,
forth here.
that's what I'm saying.
Go ahead and ask your question.
So I guess my real question is to the associate from, is that what is the current director not doing that he should be doing? And what could he do tomorrow if it was approved that he can't do now? The last time you were here, you didn't have an answer for that. And to me, this is the most important thing. The CIP, that's already there. I'm going to build a parking garage. That's already in plans. All of that's being taken care of. What can he do now that he should be doing, and what can't he do if it's tomorrow? At point blank, give me some answers.
Okay. So let me speak more towards, if you create this airport authority, what would his position look like compared to how it is today? So as a CEO of an airport, you are now the person in charge reporting to the board. So outside of the strategic initiatives and the policies that are set by the board, that CEO would be able to form its organizational structure, hire qualified people, help establish compensation and benefits plans, and of course in coordination with that authority. But there would be a lot less reliance on other city departments, right? You're going to be operating it more like a business in that sense, where the CEO needs to get something done, like hiring operations supervisor. That's going to get done probably in 2 months rather than 8. So that's what we're talking about, is these efficiencies and operating like a business. Does that make sense?
For all this, it sounds like it all comes down to salary then, just money.
No, it comes down to the operating structure itself, and in the inability for Jeff to be able to go out and make the changes that he wants to without actually impacting other departments of the city or other policies of the city itself. It's not that he's doing anything bad in the current operating structure, is that there's improvements that can be done under the authority operating structure.
Mr. Aspenleiter.
So I've been in the pro airport authority camp since the day we did orientation 2.5 years ago up at the airport, and we went through all this hoopla, went through the airport finances. Here's what we do, and the question I asked is, what the hell's the city doing involved in the airport? Because you don't need the city, frankly. You rarely even use our bonding or, our financing mechanisms. It operates autonomously. And instead, what you have is an advisory board that meets to advise on the airport, most of which, like, I don't know who's on the airport authority board or the airport advisory board. I never have known until some of them started coming to meetings on this topic. I would guess that most of my counterparts up here don't know who's on the airport advisory board. And so the airport advisory board meets, doesn't necessarily report back to the council, doesn't necessarily do a lot for the airport. And then you got us. You got 11 of us who don't touch the airport unless we buy a plane ticket or unless there's a contract, some of which I hate, by the way, that the airport director comes to us with. But how active are we actually in improving that airport? Not at all. Not at all. And instead, what we've done here is we've coupled the airport, which needs to be competitive with the surrounding airports, to a city who treats it as its own operational entity with really no impact to anything else. So we really don't care about it because it doesn't cost us anything, right? And we couple it to the city, to all of our own policies that slow them down. Jeff has to go through 2 layers of bureaucracy and management to get it to make a decision to do a contract with somebody that wants to do business and expand operations in our city. And on the wages and salary side of things, what we've done, frankly, from my perspective, is we've coupled the airport salaries to our own pay scale, which has arbitrarily lifted our own pay scale in every other department in the city government. And that happened when we hired Jeff. We increased everybody's salary because we had to pay more for an airport director to be competitive. And that's happening within the airport. Our own pay bands in city government don't allow us to be competitive. So what we'll end up doing is we'll end up increasing the pay bands to fill the positions at the airport. And then arbitrarily, we're going to elevate every other pay band across the 1,000 employees that we have in the city and cost the taxpayers even more money. So from my perspective, we actually don't provide any benefit to the airport. The airport operates very well on its own. And frankly, I think it'd be great for us to appoint a board that could be directly engaged in its operation to help it grow. I mean, there's a reason the other airports are growing at the pace that they're growing. And they don't have the meddling of city councils and the turnover of city councils and every 2 years coming in with different questions and different ideas and having to educate all over again. There's consistency in an airport authority that can provide some stability to that operation, which at the end of the day is going to be better for our community, better for our businesses, and better for its customers. And so from my perspective, are there some things that we got to work out? Sure. There's $300,000 of in-house charges that are going to come off the budget. Guess what? That means we need to start squeezing some of those budgets. I still don't understand how we charge the airport $112,000 for city administration fees. City administration doesn't do hardly anything for the airport, but that charge is way up there. So, I mean, these allocated charges are something that we can deal with, but trying to couple us to the airport because we're afraid of $294,000 that we got to figure out where to come up with in a $96 million general fund budget that's easy to do. It's certainly doable. So from my perspective, I think there's way, way, way more benefit to the airport by being decoupled from the city and having an airport authority. And at the end of the day, to me, what that means is that is a benefit to our constituents.
Mr.
Those are
Mayor,
the people that are
point
flying.
of order. I think the senior member from Ward 4 is saying some good things. However, there is no motion on the table. This is a question and answer period. I think if we're going to advocate or not advocate for it, that we should have a motion on the floor.
With respect, I let you ask 15 questions, Councilman Nicholson, and theoretically, we should have 2 or 3. So I'll stop. I think you all know where I'm at with this.
Mr. Mayor, I don't disagree with the senior
All right,
member. from
Dr. Nicholson,
4.
let's
So,
just
but I
talk
think we
to
should
you.
have a motion on the.
Understood. Thank you. All right, Mr. O'Donnell.
Thank you. One of your slides, I tried finding it again and I couldn't find it again. Said that the stakeholders believe that the current advisory board is underutilized. What would the advisory board look like in the future? You also point out that under the current structure right now, that board is simply advisory, doesn't have any administrative authority, whatever. Would that board have any authority later on? Tell me about what role that board would have that would benefit the city. That would it just be the watchdog for the airport operations on behalf of the people of the city?
So the current Aviation Transit Board itself would no longer oversee the airport if an authority board is created. And the primary difference, as you I think pretty much pointed out, is that the authority board is going to be a governing board with full powers in the operation of the airport, having the airport operating certificate from the FAA, adopting budgets, doing annual audits, having open meetings. Whereas the Aviation and Transit Board is only advisory. It cannot actually approve contracts. Everything has to come back here. So that's the distinction.
Well, so would there continue to be an advisory board? No. Okay.
There would not have to be an advisory board because you would be establishing an authority board that would be overseeing the operations.
The last thing is that if the newly constituted board has administrative authority, then that would seem to require a lot of time. Has any thought been given to compensation of those commissioners?
From our experience, they are uncompensated and volunteered positions. They would meet on about a monthly basis to approve contracts like this board does and like set policies and procedures. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to say I agree with Councilmember Pittman. I think we should have seen this at a work session. We're spending a lot of time on this, and would have been better held at a work session and that. So I also have some questions and reservations, as was mentioned, that we don't know what the answer is going to be. As Councilmember Berliner stated, we're going to have to work this out in the future. But I guess the question is, I was looking through it says interviewed 31 individuals employed, including airport employees. How many actual employees were interviewed at the airport?
If you give me a moment, Councilman, I'll be able to look that up for you.
And then while you're looking that up, during the meeting, and as you mentioned, I actually came in late. I only actually was at one, maybe 2 meetings out of the 4 or 5 that were held. And so I didn't participate in the first half of the study. And so you interrupt me if you get that number, but the last meeting I was at, I asked you a question: if any airports, once you did this study, when it's presented to the council, if anyone chose not to move forward with this model to change from a city to a authority model, and you said, yeah, there had been some. And what I probably should have asked and didn't ask was, because I was expecting an answer of no one's done that. But Do you know why some of these airports chose not to move to an authority model?
I do. And to answer your first question, Councilman, there was 8 airport designated employees and 2 other city employees and administration that we spoke with individually.
Okay, thank you. I'll come back to that in a minute.
Okay. To answer your second question, what was the reasoning as to why some of the communities decided not to move forward? I would say the number one being financials, that the airport itself wasn't financially self-sustaining. They were relying on the city or the county for some form of funding, or they were more intertwined with the operation of the city or county as well, or more reliant on other departments for their operation, making it a little bit more complex in transitioning. Where today, your operation in large part, you do have some financial staff, you have all the operational staff you need. You do need an HR manager, but these are things that can be overcome, where in some other cases that was not possible. I would say the other one would probably be politics, is just the decisions of the council or the commission at that time. They were not in favor of moving forward.
Okay. And so 8 airport employees, how many employees are at the airport?
There are approximately 56 airport employees, and we focused on our meetings with the management team of the airport.
Okay, so you didn't talk to any of the frontline employees as far as what their concerns would be or different things like that?
We have not at this time done so, no.
Okay. And then you also made a statement that Jeff can't make these changes, he wants to. So, and then you mentioned delays under existing process. I think Jeff mentioned that when he was asked. Jeff, can you give better examples of, what changes specifically let me ask this a little more clearly. What existing process is inhibiting you to operate the airport? I mean, specifically, you mentioned contracts, you mentioned hiring someone, you mentioned, I mean, I'm not sure what else is there. It appears to me there's a process that's going on, and you said the existing process that leads me to believe that could be possible but there's an existing process that is you're unable to change. Is that something the city council can make change?
Currently, as a director of the department, I am not allowed to make any decision that is associated with any form of agreement, contract, lease, or any other specific asset decision for the airport. Under an airport authority, the airport board typically grants the airport executive limited powers in making those decisions immediately. So where now, in the case that I mentioned to Councilmember Nicholson, where we had our longstanding FBO, Edwards Jet Center, purchasing Beacon Air Group, the other FBO at the airport, through a lease transfer, I was not able to make that decision. It had to go through the administration's process, then to the city council. All the while, Edwards Jet Center and their financial institution continued to push hard to me as the airport executive to make that decision. I'm not authorized to make that decision. I'm not authorized to make any of those decisions under a city council form of government.
Okay, and that's a fairly unique situation. Do those come up very often?
They come up very regularly.
Okay, and so when you say the existing process, you're talking about the fact that you're required to have it into the administration X number of weeks prior to it ever coming to the city council.
That's
but you're
correct.
going to still have to, because it's a public airport, it goes to public authority, you're still going to have to give public notice to these things, and your board may require you to have that to the board a week ahead of time, like we have our stuff a week ahead of time. So there's still going to be at least a week or so, depending on what your new board would state. Is that correct?
Only for those items that I'm not authorized as an airport executive to approve.
Okay, and does your board, once we as a city appoint the board, does your board then have the freedom to allow you to have any of the limitations they choose? In other words, they could say, well, listen, we're going to give you carte blanche. Just come to us, once a month or once a week and tell us what you did. I mean, is that the type of authority they have the authority to do, or do we as a city council place those limitations in the resolution or the next resolution or whatever? At what point is there, if there is any limitations to put on by the city council?
Councilman, I'll answer that. So in general, their agenda would be somewhat similar to this council being a public body. So they would have to have an open comment, public comment period, and then go into if they have a consent agenda or a regular agenda item. So depending on like the policies, like let's say a purchasing policy, you'd be following that. And if an item is above a certain threshold, that contract would then be on your regular agenda at that point. And you're right, there would be a public notice period. So they would have to put out a notice of when the meeting is, where it's going to be held, and what are the agenda items that are going to be on that. So that's all handled really by your state laws, more so than what this council would have to put in the resolution.
But who sets those authority limitations? The council as we do the resolution, or is it the authority once they take office?
Which limitations?
Approval limits, contract approval amounts. Who sets those authority limitations?
Yeah, the authority board would have to follow state law and procurement and ultimately set its own policies that would follow state law.
Okay, so they're going to set the amount. So Jeff could have, or the airport, not Jeff, but whoever the airport director is, he could have $500,000 signing approval as long as it's state law said they can do that, or contract approval. All of that could be done outside of the our airport authority. Is that correct?
It is. I think 500,000 might be a little high, but it would be correct that they can establish their policy. And what my recommendation would be is that they look towards the other airport authorities in your state and understand what their procurement policies are to have best practices in establishing that.
But if the city council, for whatever reason down the road, didn't like what the airport authority was doing, there's nothing other than going back and revoking it and changing back to a municipal model. There's nothing the city can do to change anything the airport authority is doing. If for whatever reason, as council member, Dr. Nichols said, in the worst case scenario, the only thing we could do is take it back.
The first thing I think that the council would do is appoint new people to the board that they would entrust in better serving the community.
So are you saying that the city council has the authority to recall board members, the advisory or the
appoint a new
Mr.
member?
Mayor, this is where I'm going to call point of order. I mean, we're getting into this direct conversation. I mean, at some point in time.
This is our work session about, this is the kind of information we need to know what we're getting into to sign this resolution.
Look,
and so this is why it should have been at a work session.
With all due respect,
Councilmember
this is also why you should have been on the
Councilmember Escalante.
committee from the beginning to have these conversations.
So
Don't disagree.
I've had a couple requests for breaks. So we're going to take a recess for 10 minutes and then we'll come back and it'll be Councilmember Kennedy's chance for questioning. Thank you.
especially the new council members.
All right, let's see. We're at Councilmember Kennedy's next.
Mayor, I think people had a lot of time, and we worked with the consultant, and it was a good discussion this evening. But I would make a motion to adopt the airport governance advisory committee recommendations for the airport governing model and the intent to form a municipal airport authority. So that is passing this resolution.
Second.
Who is on this side here? Mr. Lindley. All right. We have a motion by Mr. Kennedy and a second by Mr. Lindley. Is there any discussion, Mr. Kennedy?
Yes, I would like to speak to the motion. Anyone that has some concern needs to go to Helena and visit with them on the airport authority in Helena, which they passed years ago. Bozeman, who is very much our competition. Kalispell, and if you talk to the folks in Kalispell, you will find out they are being very competitive in Kalispell at the airport authority in Kalispell. I just want to say one thing. We have an advisory board. We have talked about advisory boards, and advisory boards are just what they are. They can give advice. This is creating an airport authority for a governing board with the council making the appointment to each of the members on the governing board. And so that gives the city of Billings that authority, and the airport manager works for that governing board. And the authority you will see in stage 2, is that what you're calling it? And then into stage 3, which will all come back to this council. But we will see phase 2 on the governance transition. We have that authority to do it. This also has to go through FAA consultation and approval. We still have until complete transition of June of 27. That's over a year from now. But let's give them the opportunity to go forward to put this together, and the resolution is the intent to form the authority, but it also gives you all an opportunity in the future to put whatever you are looking at in phase 2 of the governance. And I think that's what we're getting bogged down in tonight. So I would ask that you vote for going forward with the resolution to move this forward. Thank you.
Mr. Lindley.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I seconded this and I support it. Although this is certainly for myself and other members, new members of council, this is kind of been a fast learning experience for all of us to understand what this means. But there are some things, and it was mentioned once, but I want to repeat it, that are some misconceptions I've heard from people in the community reaching out to me that I think are important to understand are not true. That this is not a sale of the airport to a private entity. That the city does retain oversight, maybe not direct control, but certainly oversight. And that we have the ability to set these board members going forward, which I think is important. I agree with Dr. Nicholson that I would prefer that it is city controlled. And so I like that that's the way we're heading. And lastly, personally, I think that the changes made in the last few years to the airport have been fantastic. I think they really represent the city better. And you know, hearing, I think it was a great example with the Edwards Jet Center situation where I want to make sure that we do have people in a position to make those decisions quickly because business moves fast and those kinds of deals, given the authority to have those decisions made more quickly by somebody who understands the business of aviation is certainly going to help Billings and all the passengers that are flying.
Mr. Aspenleiter.
Thanks, Beans. I gave my speech. I'm going to take this time to ask my questions. I'm joking. I'm not going to reiterate everything that I said. I do want to remind everybody here, though, we did have this in a work session. It was March 16th. We had a work session, and we came to that. We had very few questions, and maybe that was because we didn't know what to ask and we weren't at the decision point. But I think this is a prime example. This was a microcosm of not just this council, but councils past. We set these committees up to do work, and the committees do the work. And then we bring it back to the full body, and then all of a sudden the committee, the full body, doesn't care really what the 6 or 8 months of work that the committee did. The full body now wants to do all the work. And then rehash all of the things that have been discussed in the committee with the committee recommendation. And mind you, some of your council members are on these committees that are duly elected just like you. So I'm not saying that the council has to rubber stamp everything that comes out of a committee. I'm not going to support, the underpass thing that Roy's working on because I think it's crazy. That's an example of exactly what I'm talking about, though. If we're going to create committees to do this kind of work, then there ought to be some consideration for the work that these committees do. Otherwise, we should have an honest conversation about whether the full 11 council members should be doing all of the work on all of these committees are doing and making all of the decisions.
Mr. Pittman, then Mr. Neese.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. A question was asked. I was on the Aviation and Transit Board, so I was one of the previous members. It used to be called the place where council and mayors went to die. But there was usually some past members that remembered some of the history of that. But I support this idea because it gives power to the board. Instead of it just being advisory or just to hear what you've done, it actually gives you direction and parameters just as much as we give the city administrator authority and things like that. So it becomes a different dynamic than the current situation. And I know that's been a level of frustration. I think my concern right now is we've got people's attention. And so the community and the staff are very much aware we're headed in this direction. Once we approve this resolution, I think it's harder to stop the train once we go past this point. So what I would like to do at this point is to prove their point by saying, I'm going to get in the way just a little bit and slow this process down. So I'm going to make a substantive motion that we postpone this decision until June 8th and add a public hearing.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion regarding the motion? Mr. Boyette.
So can I ask the councilman, why June 8th? What's going to happen between now and June 8th?
So June 8th would be, Mayor and Council, June 8th would be the next business meeting. I don't want to get in the way of this really progressing, but I also want to give people the opportunity so that as we look at a year from now, we can say we gave a public hearing. We had this discussion, which I think was great. I would never take these kind of discussions away from our council. But I think letting this stew for 2 weeks, seeing what else our constituents have, once this is kind of getting out there that we are headed in this direction, and giving the people the opportunity to give us their feedback, making sure the employees and the staff and the stakeholders are on board, it would be nice to be hearing from them directly and giving them an opportunity. So by giving them public comment and just doing this in 2 weeks, I think it accomplishes two things. It builds trust with our community that we're listening to them, and it moves the process forward.
Go ahead, Mr. Boyette.
Mayor.
So to our city administrator, how would that work? Is that possible to have it on the next work session without any issues? If this happens?
So, Councilman, Deputy Mayor Boyette, Mayor and Council, is it possible? Absolutely, because you've got it on action item for tonight. What I would tell you, though, is that June 8th is budget adoption night. So you've got budget adoption and all components tied to the budget. So I would not want you to think you're going to have a short meeting that night, and I wouldn't trump the budget with this. I would put this after, though it won't be mine to call. I would not say this is more important than the overall city budget, but that's the main topic for June 8th is adopting a budget.
Thank you. Mr. Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Councilmember Pittman. There's a lot of me who likes this whole model, but as I've gone through being a part of the study, I think there's a lot of questions still to be asked, and by not just by me, but by the public. And I think that this is the delaying it without killing it would be, I think, a better way to go, because there's a lot here that we're going to be asking the public to consider. And I agree, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And that's not what, I want to make sure that the public is aware of what this new authority is going to be able to do and what is going to happen. So I think delaying it a couple of weeks or even 3 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever it is not going to stop the process from moving forward. So that's what I would ask to slow it down a little bit.
Mr. Boyette.
Thank you. During phase 2 and phase 3, is there opportunities for public comment, for the public to come forward or meet or greet or whatever?
Yes, Councilman, primarily phase 2. So as we move forward, we'll have to develop the operating structure. So working with a new committee or members of this council, we'll have to hash out the details, and then we'll come out with a draft resolution that would be the establishing the forming resolution for that authority. So at that time, we would actually be able to answer maybe more questions to the public related to the specifics, and we'll host a public hearing before that resolution is passed.
Mr. Aspenleiter.
I'm going to oppose this. I think we've had plenty of time to talk about this. We had a work session with public comment and got absolutely no public comment. There's been outreach. There was outreach to one of the task force groups that's very active in this community. This meeting was advertised. I got 10 emails about our nonsensical city vision statement and exactly 0 about this airport. Exactly 0. But everybody was concerned about diversity being in our vision statement for the city, because that's what's important to the community, apparently. But I think I say that only because I think that's the level of concern that our community has about this airport. Nobody is paying attention because everything is great. And we're going to give them 3 more weeks. And unless you go knock on your neighbor's door and ask them specifically, they're not going to come knock on yours because they haven't yet. So I don't think it's necessary to delay this anymore. I think we can move this forward. So I'm not going to support the substitute motion.
Any other conversation regarding the substitute motion? All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Pittman and seconded by Councilmember Neese to delay this till June 8th. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say no.
No.
No. So that was Mr. Neese and Mr. Pittman in favor and the rest against. So that brings us back to the original motion and our rotation. Councilmember Neese, you were up next.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, being on the study commission, I feel that this didn't answer a lot of the relevant information for us to make a decision. It always seemed to say that, well, we have to pass this first phase pass this resolution so we can move on to find out what we need to do in phase 2 and how much it's going to cost the airport, what the actual impact will be to the city and, you know, current employees that are city employees, then they're going to be, you know, under the authority employees. The employees up there, and I talked to just a couple of them, they've heard about it, but they weren't sure whether it's going to be a good move or a bad move. They don't know. Then, as it was already mentioned, we have, you know, the chart says $700,000 is what the airport funnels to the city through things. And I heard 300,000, 400,000, whatever it is. It's going to be a loss of revenue to the city any way we look at it. We don't know if the employees can continue on with their health insurance through the city and be still members of that, or they have to go to their own employee pool. There's so much that we don't know about this, and it's going to impact our current city employees that are up at the airport and our current city employees here in the city. I think, you know, again, I like the concept. I like the idea. I just wish we had more information on what it's going to be look like. And so in this phase 2, I hope we're really, really involved, because I think this is probably going to pass, but I'm not going to support it. But if phase 2, I want to make sure the council is very involved in this, so we have answers to all these questions, and we understand what the full impact is going to be to our employees and to the city and to the airport. Authorities, you know, are doing well, and that's a great thing, because it brings more people to the city, and it brings more people to our community, and then, of course, puts a lot more demand on housing. And we, you know, I'm not saying that we're a Bozeman or a Kalispell. There's other things that drive those housing costs up there. But the more we bring people into the city, the more demand there's going to be for housing. So there's a lot of things the city is going to have to do to make sure we help developers meet that demand. And so, again, the authority I would expect to go through, it's going to be successful, probably more than likely, like all authorities have been. But I think that we need to make sure that the impact that it's going to have in the city, we're prepared for it and ready to move forward on it. But again, because I think it's moving very fast, I'm gonna vote no on this for now.
Thank you, Mr. Neese. I'm going to support the motion. Having spent a large portion of my life as a CEO in the private sector, I can tell you that the boss can point at something and get it done pretty quickly. And having 5 months experience on the city council, I go back to my first 2 weeks here where we debated a $1 increase in swimming fees for 4 hours. So, Mr. Roach, I think you're doing a great job. I also believe that we have an economic engine in the airport that is pretty underutilized. 684 million is no drop in the bucket. I think that was the number of the contribution to Billings' economy. In my opinion, that could be closer to $1 billion and pretty quickly. So that's 2 of the reasons. I could go on a lot longer, but I'm going to support the motion. So, Mr. Pittman.
So I'm not going to belabor anything I've already said. I'm not going to support this, but I will pledge that I will be active and involved in stage 2 of this and finding out ways to engage and make sure that this is the best possible authority we can have. So you've got my commitment to that, and whatever you need and from your committee that I can help you with. I really do think this is going to be good for the community. I just don't want us to make small missteps that cause it not to work.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, guys, it's time to vote. So all those in favor of the motion as presented by Mr. Kennedy, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Nay.
Mr. Neese and Mr. Pittman were no's. All right, we are now, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Item number 3.
Public hearing and resolution adopting solid waste collection, disposal, and landfill fees for fiscal year 2027. Staff recommends approval.
It's working on it. All right. Good? All right. Right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item is for the setting of the FY27 solid waste collection and landfill fees. These fees that are in this presentation are the same fees that were presented last week to Council at the work session, and the fees that were shown in April to the Budget and Finance Committee. So first, this is what's going into the fee increases in solid waste. Our share for solid waste of the property and liability insurance increases is $166,000. Increase in personnel is $700,000. That does include 2 new positions, but it's primarily for the cost of living increases, health insurance increases, and step increases per the Teamsters contract. We do have the addition of a $500,000 truck for a new route for the commercial line of business, and $150,000 for additional litter screens at the landfill to help us there, as well as another $150,000 to replace the inbound scale at the landfill. And then one of the largest rate drivers is the cell construction of the new Phase 6 cell that we need at the landfill. And we do need to set rates at a rate that will be able to pay for the debt service for this construction. I do show here there is a subsidy that we do when we set these rates. Unlike water and sewer that are very legally restricted in Montana as far as you cannot subsidize one class of user with another, you can with solid waste rates. So the rate that we're recommending going forward for this year does still contain that subsidy. Only a couple items that are in the CIP for the solid waste. One is that landfill cell 6, and the second item is for the horizontal gas wells, which are needed not only for revenue generation for both the general fund and solid waste, but also for regulatory compliance at the landfill. So the rates that we are recommending for FY27 are $1.25 increase for the residential 96-gallon container, 90-cent increase for the 64-gallon container, and then we're recommending a 7% increase for the commercial rates and a 10% increase for roll-off rates. And again, that residential subsidy is shown at the bottom. So the cost of service rate, which includes all of the services that we do for residential collection, which is 1 black barrel up to 2 green barrels, and then your cardboard collection, as well as the disposal at the landfill, that cost of service is $21.84. The recommended rate is then $15.75, so we're subsidizing about 28% of that with landfill fees. So as compared to other cities in the region, we are the lowest always for our residential rates. Even if we were not subsidizing with landfill fees, we would be right up where Sheridan is, so still very competitive with other cities. And then for the landfill tipping fees, sometimes called gate fees, we are recommending a 10.4% rate increase. The city of Billings rate would then go to $35.15 per ton. The Montana or outside Billings, Montana rate is set at 50% more than the city of Billings rate, and this is per a previous council directive. And then the out-of-state rate is double the city of Billings rate. We have, I think, outpriced out-of-staters from our market at this time. We used to have several entities in Wyoming, but the Budget and Finance Committee did ask us to keep that rate in just in case there are requests that we have that flexibility in our resolution. The 3 fees that are shown at the bottom are just their additional landfill fees shown here just because they are not at the 10.4% rate increase that we're recommending for the others. These are to get those fees to the cost of services. And then the landfill fee comparison per ton is shown here. The City of Billings rate is only above Bozeman, below everyone else. And even the outside City of Billings rate is still competitive with the rest of the cities in the region. And that is all I have for a presentation. I'm here for questions.
Anybody have questions for Mr. Ray? Mr. Boyette?
Thank you, Mayor. Jennifer, what is a mobile home trailer's fee? What is that?
So there are times where people will bring their an entire mobile home to dispose of. So based on the average weight of those mobile homes, we're recommending an increase higher than the 10.4% just because the average weight, wasn't being covered in the previous rate.
Mr. Kennedy?
Jennifer, we talked about the cost, and it costs more to pick up the cardboard and everything. You don't sell the cardboard, you just take it up and throw it back in the landfill. So there's not a market for it. So why do we even have it in here when you can just pick it up with the rest of the garbage?
Councilmember Kennedy, we will be here next Monday to talk about cardboard and get some council direction on that. Right now, the previous council direction was to have this cardboard pickup service. We'll go through those options. So right now, we're not disposing of it in the landfill. We are paying somebody to take it, though.
Okay.
It is costing money.
Okay, and
Go
just my last comment is I am voting no, and I'm voting no on the increases because I really do feel that we keep on increasing fees, but we're not finding a solution to keep on moving everything up because it's an enterprise fund. So I will vote no tonight.
Any other questions for Mr. Ray?
Yeah, my hand's up.
Oh, there you are, Mr. Neese. Yes.
Hey, Jennifer, on the $1.25, I think you said it's going up to 8.6%. Now, last year we didn't go up at all, I believe. And so is some of this catching up what we did last year? And then you said the other biggest driver was the new cell. Is that, do I understand that correctly?
Councilmember Neese, there really isn't a catch up in these rates because last year we did increase the landfill rates more to make up for the lack of the residential rate increase. I think that, okay. Yeah, the increases that were shown here for some of the items that we're experiencing needs for totals, I think about 1.7 or 1.8 million. And then there is that cell construction in which, the residential customers do pay a part of.
Okay, so that leads me to my next question on the cell construction. This is cell 6 that we're opening and constructing now. It'll be open in a couple of years. Or is it next year it's open? Regardless. When that's done, do we start putting away money, or do we have money put away right now to construct cell 6 and then we start collecting for cell 7? Or do we bond all of that and then just have to pay a 20-year bond on the construction?
Councilmember Neese, the plan for the cell 6 construction is to bond for most of it. So we have money that we have been collecting and setting aside, and then we need to set aside more this year and probably next year going forward to make sure that we can pay the debt service on it. So similar to what we did with the water rates with the West End project, we increased it prior to the bond sale. That increase or the upgrade that we got in our bond rating didn't occur without careful planning and consistent determined rate increases by city council. So we're asking for the same thing here.
Okay. And last question is, you always show us a chart how we're really low as far as what our subsidized rate is low. Do you know if Helena subsidized their rate or any of the other cities subsidize their rates as well?
Councilmember Neese, I don't believe any others subsidize their rates. I think we are in a unique position in Billings where we own both the landfill and have the collection service. So we are able to do that here.
Okay, so Helena doesn't own their landfill. They have to contract it out?
I would have to check on Helena. I'm not sure.
Okay, because I think it wasn't Helena. Was it just lower, just the next one above us? Is that correct? Keep going back. The residential rates.
Oh, the residential. Yes, Helena was the next one.
Okay, and without a subsidized rates, we'd be at 21, so we'd be higher than Helena and Great Falls, and well, maybe Kalispell or Sheridan, maybe. So that's what I'm trying to figure out without our subsidized rates where we sit, and if they, you know, I'm thankful we subsidize them, but where that means we're operating at in a mid tier with some of these others, and so I just always like to see if we have to stop subsidizing where we're going to be and what are these people doing or these other areas doing differently than we're doing, that at least we can subsidize them. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neese. Mr. O'Donnell?
Thank you. Other than the gas that's generated that we sell to MDU, is there any other revenue that the landfill produces?
Landfill specifically for the general fund, or?
Just anything to our favor. You say the cardboard, we have to pay somebody to take it, but in terms of the gas, we get money from MDU for the gas that's created. Is there anything else that we, this revenue to the city?
As far as, all the landfill fees stay in the solid waste fund and our revenue for the solid waste fund. The only one that is revenue to this city, as general fund would be the gas revenue.
Thank you.
Mr. Pittman?
So just to follow up, don't we collect the metal and recycle that? We separate it out, I know.
We do have a metal section that we recycle up at the landfill. In fact, we recycle a number of items at the landfill. There's not really a market for cardboard right now.
Anybody else? All right, we'd entertain a motion. Oh, excuse me. Yes, I guess we'll have a public hearing. Is there any, we'll open a public hearing for this item. Any public comments regarding this? Looks like I saw the future. Any comment regarding this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion. Mr. Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve a resolution adopting the solid waste collection, disposal, and landfill fees for fiscal year 2027 as recommended by staff.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Dr. Nicholson. Any discussion regarding the motion? Mr. Boyette?
I went to a friend of mine in Bozeman last year, and he had a 60-gallon garbage can in his front yard, and I said, show me your bill. He brought out his bill, and he pays twice what I paid for a 90-gallon. We're so fortunate here. I think this, even so people complain that it costs a lot of money, we have a good deal going in Billings. We own our own landfill. I think it's very reasonable, so I think we support this highly.
Thank you, Mr. Boyette. Anyone else? All right. Seeing no further discussion, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor of Councilman Boyette's motion, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Mr. Kennedy is in opposition. Thank you, folks. Thank you, Mr. Ray. Item number 4.
Okay, this is a joint public hearing for annexation 2605 and zone change 1081. That's located at 1039 Lincoln Lane. The resolution approving annexation 2605, a parcel of land generally located at 1039 Lincoln Lane. Staff recommends conditional approval. And the second item is a resolution for zone change 1081. Same description for the property, and the zoning commission recommends approval and adoption of the 10 review criteria. This is a joint public hearing, but 2 separate votes will be needed.
We're ready anytime you are.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So, as was previously mentioned, tonight we are going over zone change number 1081 and annexation 2605. This is a parcel located at 1039 Lincoln Lane up in the Heights, more specifically described as Tract A of Certificate of Survey number 539. It is a piece of land approximately just a little over 13,800 square feet in size. This land is currently in the county, and they are requesting a annexation and subsequent zone change, the applicants, in order to connect to municipal wastewater services. Their current septic system is in a state of disrepair, and the most effective alternative to repair or replacing that system is to connect to city services. The owners, Stephen and Naveen Lasevich, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, are also here tonight, and are available to answer any questions if you have any. So, just reiterating over the interconnectedness of the items tonight, I'll give my presentation regarding the annexation and joint and zone change. We will have a joint public hearing regarding both of those 2 options, and then the development agreement and ward boundary ordinance. They will be heard on their own. We do not have any specific presentation prepared for either of those items, but they will need to also have their own voting sections on them. And this was going to go into Ward 1, Election Ward 1. So here is the legal exhibit of the property itself. So here's the property currently on our limits of annexation map. As you can see, this is in Zone 3, the county developed areas adjacent to the city, so it is eligible to be annexed. So here is the current zoning configuration of the lot and the surrounding environment. The current zoning designation of this property is the N4 large lot residential. That is the county's closest analog to our N3 suburban residential zoning. It is surrounded by a variety of zonings on all sides. So to the north, there is some, immediately to the north, there is some property that is already annexed into the city and has N2 zoning. Further north on Lincoln Lane is N4 zoned areas, so mostly single family residential lots. To the south, there is an NX2 portion that is also annexed into the city. Those are currently apartments. To the east, there is yet more residential area as well as a church. And then to the west, across Lincoln Lane, is the Heights Target and surrounding shops. The zone change is specifically going to bring the property from N4 to N3, which is our fairly most common residential zoning in the city, and primarily caters towards lots that are traditionally existing single family, or as is usually the standard, N4 zone properties that are being brought into the city. And then here is the current satellite image of the lot and the surrounding environs. And then a larger scale vicinity map showing the surrounding area in the heights. And then here are some photos we have of the property itself and the various directions adjacent to it. So this is looking at the property. This is we're looking in a southern eastern direction, northeastern, and then finally looking west towards the rear of the target. So staff, upon taking a look at the 7 annexation polity criteria, staff feels that it has met all of the criteria. The key takeaways being that it is within Zone 3 of our limits of annexation map. Adequate city services will be provided to the lot and are generally available to the lot right now. The specifics of how it'll connect to the wastewater system and other improvements are covered in the development agreement. The development agreement is also going to have a waiver of right to protest the creation of improvement districts for any improvements that are not explicitly laid out in the development agreement. And then this property will also join a park maintenance district as deemed necessary by the Parks Department. Getting into the zone change itself, staff is generally recommending approval of the zone change and adoption of the proposed review criteria. Our analysis of this zone change proposal, we found that the surrounding area consists of a mix of residential uses that are similar to the proposed zoning designation, and more particularly, this also fulfills our goal requirement, our current general plan goals of strong neighborhoods and home base, respectively. And then likewise, the zoning commission, they took a look at this and they felt that this application was meeting all 10 of the zone change review criteria. So, with all of that being said, we are making the following recommendations. Regarding the annexation, staff is recommending that the City Council hold a public hearing on the annexation. Upon completion of the hearing, staff recommends the city annex the petition property with the staff recommended conditions of approval. And then for the zone change, the Zoning Commission is recommending approval of Zone Change 1081 and adoption of the findings addressing the 10 review criteria. The request is to change the aforementioned parcel from N4 to N3 zoning. The proposed zoning will support annexation into the city of Billings and enable connection to municipal water and wastewater services. Are there any questions from the council?
Any questions for our presenter?
I have some.
Go ahead, Mr. Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. So one thing I didn't see in here, what is the map designation now that we have the Malupa map over it? Because when we're approving a zone change to N3, then it's coming in the city. Now the city staff is going to have the ability to change it to anything within the map category. So do you know what map category this is now?
Mayor and council, or Councilmember Neese, off the top of my head, I'm not immediately aware of the general plan land use designation that we're putting in that would overlay this specific lot.
Okay. And maybe this could be something, because this is the first one now that we're seeing after the Malupa approval. And so maybe this is something that, Kevin, you can address and maybe get this, have that classification included in our presentations. So we know what all the options are for zone change. And then I have a couple other questions. One is, again, we don't normally see a lot of the developed property like this just coming in because of the septic issue. We know that's going to happen in the future with some of the stuff out west, but do you know if this property has any outstanding, or would it have any city code issues? Has code enforcement looked at to make sure there's no issues outstanding on this property coming in, so we're not immediately having a code issue? Or if so, we could actually write this into the annexation agreement to get that resolved now instead of having to fight it through the code enforcement.
Commissioner, Councilmember Neese, to my recollection, while looking over their current site layout and comparison to our current zoning code, there does not appear to be any outstanding conflicts with the current zoning code as it relates to their property.
Okay, the last question I have, thank you on that. The last question I have is, when they're coming in like this and connecting to our city sewer, is the septic tank required to be removed so that in the future there's not a hazard to the property?
Commissioner Neese,
yeah, go ahead.
I would probably have to request the assistance of possibly you. Oh, here's Mac.
Come on up, Mac.
He could probably answer that question better than I could.
Councilmember Neese, Mayor and Council, the septic tank does not have to be removed, but generally they can be removed. Generally what happens is they fill those and sort of render it inoperable, so they'll fill it full of gravel. That's how they deal with that, and that's
so they would
typical.
Is that a requirement, or is that just something you hope they do?
That's I think that's a Riverstone Health requirement.
Okay, all right, great, thank you. I appreciate knowing that to make sure that's not an issue. But I hope it's just you hope it's that way. If it's not, please let us know if that's not correct. Thank you.
We have any questions for the landowners? They're here. No, looks not. All right. Anything else for our presenter? I'm going to open it up to a public hearing now. This is a joint public hearing for annexation 26-05 and zone change 1081 at 1039 Lincoln Lane. If there's any public comment, now's the time to make it. Come on up, tell us your name, where you live, and take your 3 minutes. Is there any public comment regarding 4A or 4B? All right, seeing none, we'll entertain motions. Dr. Nicholson.
Yes, I hope I get this right. Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve a resolution conditionally approving annexation 26-05 as recommended by staff.
Second.
Dr. Nicholson made the motion. Councilman Pittman seconded. Is there any discussion regarding the motion? Mr. O'Donnell.
I think the motion is stated only has to do with A, not A and B.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Pittman.
So I'm very familiar with this neighborhood. I think it's a great opportunity for us. When we can get these, it's low-hanging fruit. It makes the road better, the neighborhood better, and more consistent. So I'd appreciate your vote on all of these.
All right. Dr. Nicholson, anything?
Well, I'd just like to say, fond of seeing the continuing march of Ward 1, the beating heart of Billings, into the heights.
See, that's 37 meetings in a row, not bad. Any other discussion regarding the motion? Mr. Kukulski.
Mayor, Councilmember Neese, I just want to clarify for the record. I don't know that your question that's a requirement. I don't think, though, it's a concern. I've never seen a problem, and because it's close enough to the sewer line, they couldn't get a permit to reinstate the septic system. So I just want to be clear that you're not expecting an answer to come back later. I think it's a non-issue for those reasons. They'd have to get permitted by the health department, which they wouldn't be permitted. And secondly, I haven't seen in 27 years us ever mandate filling in a septic system. They've got a failure, we've got a solution. It's worked well.
Thank you. Any other conversation, discussion regarding the motion? Seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor of the item 4A, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Motions for item 4B.
Mr. Mayor, having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve resolution for zone change 1081 and adopt the findings of the 10 review criteria as recommended by the Zoning Commission.
Second.
Mr. Pittman seconds. Any discussion regarding this motion? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor of item 4B, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? All right, that leads us to item 4C, annexation agreement.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve an annexation agreement with Stephen G. and Nadine A. Blasevich as recommended by staff.
Second.
Dr. Nicholson and Mr. Pittman have made their positions known. Is there any discussion regarding this motion? All those in favor then, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? That one is unanimous also. Item 4D, a public hearing and first reading ordinance expanding the boundaries of Ward 1. Who wants to speak to that?
Dear Mayor,
have to
this
have a
is my
public hearing.
favorite one.
No,
Hold on just a second, Dr. Nicholson.
Okay.
yeah. Mayor, you need to have a public hearing for this item, please. Public hearing.
Yes, okay, so we'll open it up to a public hearing regarding the annexation of the boundaries of Ward 1. Is there any comment regarding item 4D? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing for item 4D and ask for a motion. Now, Dr. Nicholson, yes.
I hope it is right. Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve the first reading ordinance expanding the boundaries of Ward 1 as recommended by staff.
Second.
Dr. Nicholson and Mr. Pittman again. Any discussion regarding this motion? Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes, it occurred to me as we are expanding wards that every so often, I think in order to be in compliance with the state law, that we need to recalibrate the population in each one of these wards. Is that currently happening,
It
Mr.
happened.
Kukulski?
Councilmember O'Donnell, Mayor and Council, that happens after the census. So once the census is done every 10 years, then we are required to recalibrate the wards from that point.
So it's only done by requirement. It's not done on a regular basis, so that things would be totally out of whack, which would lead to a lawsuit.
To answer your question, that is correct. It's only happens after the 10-year census. I would say our growth rates, though we're generous and we're growing, we're not growing so fast that you're seeing thousands of people move into one ward and leaving another ward. So I think the imbalance is pretty minor, at least historically for the past 5-6 decades.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion regarding the motion? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor of item 4D, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? And that passes unanimously. Congratulations, folks. We now move on to item number 5.
Public hearing, a resolution for zone change 1082, generally located at 1935 Avenue B. Zoning Commission recommends approval and adoption of the 10 review criteria.
Good evening. Excuse me. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So we have zone change 1082, a request to change from mid-century neighborhood N2 to public and civic institutions P2 at 1935 Avenue B. It's Grace United Methodist Church. Currently, the surrounding zoning is all N2. So the P2 zone is intended for public and civic institutions such as churches, and it allows them to exist within neighborhoods without disrupting the character of the district. Here's the aerial photo, and then I have a couple more for you. The subject property, and then east and west. So the intent is to allow the church to continue operating. The N2 zoning allows churches, however, there are some limitations onto development standards for the neighborhood character. The the zone change was instigated because they would like to upgrade their existing signage. It's a static reader board that needs to be hand changed. You can see it in this photo here. And then the proposed includes an EMD sign, which EMDs are not allowed in the N2 zone district. So with this zone change, that would allow them to have what's called a static EMD. So it allows a message, one message at a time for a certain period of time, whether it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and it has to just change at a certain point. It doesn't allow them to have any kind of animation or any flashing lights or anything that would disrupt the neighborhood. So the Zoning Commission held their public hearing and is recommending approval and adoption of the review criteria. The following growth criteria is met through this zone change with strong neighborhoods, public gathering spaces, essential investments, and prosperity. That concludes my presentation if you have any questions.
Thank you, Councilmember Neese.
Thank you, Mayor. Karen, do you know if this is going to require a map change on this? Because is P2 something that's allowed in most zones?
I'm sorry, could you restate the question? I couldn't quite hear you.
Yes. Do you know if this will require a map change, or is this area P2 one of the allowed uses in this where this is categorized?
This application was actually submitted prior to the adoption of the map, but I did check, and it is still in line with that designation.
Okay, so P2, the P2 is with whichever. P2 is okay, authorized. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And then it looks to me like, and I'm not sure where the sign's going to be, but it looks to me like there's N2 right across the street. And so is there any indication on this that this will be dimmed at all at nighttime?
Actually, yes. Under the sign code, there are requirements for it to be dim in the evening at night so that it doesn't interfere with any kind of traffic or neighboring properties.
Okay, so if there's any issues with it not being dimmed, but it can't be, it doesn't require it to be turned off, but just dimmed. So the neighbors can call code enforcement or talk to them and let them know they need to dim it.
Correct.
Do you know how much dimmer it gets? I don't recall do you recall how dim it has to be?
I don't have that information in front of me, but they do have to sign a waiver that states that they will abide by all of the zoning code requirements for the sign.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our presenter? Is the applicant here? Anyone for the applicant? Do they want to speak?
I don't believe so.
All right. So it's time for a public hearing on item 5, resolution for zone change 1082. Is there anybody from the public that wants to speak to this? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and ask for motions. Mr. Boyette?
Thank you, Mayor. Having conducted a public hearing, considered written and spoken public testimony, I move to approve a resolution for zone change 1082 and adopt the findings of the 10 review criteria as recommended by the zoning commission.
Thank you. All right. Any discussion regarding the motion, Mr. Boyette?
In my past life, I used to do a lot of services here with the mortuary, and the property across the street is a vacant lot, or a parking lot, which they own, and a rectory across the street. So I can't imagine this sign would affect anybody because no one's going to see it.
Very good. Dr. Nicholson.
I think this is a congregation that puts its faith into action, and anything we can do to help that along is good.
All righty. Further comment regarding the motion? Call for a vote then. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Item number 6.
Tax increment financing assistance from the East Billings Urban Renewal District, eBird, to Trackside Auto Body to fence its railroad lease property up to a maximum reimbursement of $19,137. East Billings Urban Renewal District, eBird Advisory Committee recommends approval.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight from the Bird to go over the Trackside TIF application with you. So Trackside Auto Body is family owned and operated. They are at 2012 First Avenue North. They have been there for 18 years. And before that, I believe it was another auto body shop that was there. They are in one of the unique situations of everything that their auto body shop is on, it is all leased land. So their building, they own their building, the railroad owns the land that is on, and then there's a lot right next door, which is the one we're looking at for this fence. The railroad also owns that. They have had that lease for the land their shop is on since 2019. The lease was held previously by the owner prior to them. Trackside has leased the portion of land where the proposed fence will be since 2018. The railroad has indicated they are going to do a lease increase on them with the addition of the fence, thinking that it adds value to that. When they do leases, it's for an indefinite period of time. The site has a long history of occupancy, and then this is just a continued investment. Oh boy, look what I did. So the fence is to address safety concerns as well as potential blight on that lot. They use that for their customers' vehicles. That's where they are stored during the day, overnight sometimes. We have had issues with people breaking into cars in this area. Where this lot faces Montana Avenue, it's kind of a triangular shaped chunk. These photos, what you can see right here is that first one, when we're looking to the left, that top photo is after some of that metal fencing that they put in. That bottom photo is what that looked like before. So there's, as you can see, major upgrade with adding the metal fencing. That second picture that's outlined in orange, that is the site now. Below that is from 2011. There was a chain link fence up there, and that was used for storage at one point. So it's obviously a lot cleaner looking now than it was then. That bottom photo is from the paper mill from before and after they did some of their outside site upgrades. So landscaping and decent looking fencing really do change a lot of the look. The historical TIF project comparison. So something that the eBird has is a code that has some higher standards than the rest of the city of Billings. With that, historically, the removal of blight and fencing have been funded at a little bit of a higher rate, anywhere from, as you can see, I think 33, 29%, all the way up to 100%, just depending on what that is. Bell Chemical and Stir, those are both just 100% fencing projects. And then everything below that is going to be blight removal as well as some security things as well.
Thank you. Questions for our presenter? Mr. O'Donnell?
Thank you. So I read this over, and I'm trying to, because I'm new to this whole process, TIF process right here, to understand the difference between use of tax money for public purposes and private purposes. It seems to me that from what you said, the area is not blighted at all in comparison to a lot of other areas. The fence would be provide safety. I agree, it would look nicer. Wouldn't that be the obligation rightfully of the business owner rather than the taxpayer?
So with an urban renewal district, it doesn't go property by property as far as blight is concerned. It is an overall district finding. The area is blighted, which is why it can be the urban renewal district. Part of, and this has gone back and forth with council, is part of that funding of our fencing is because it is such a higher rate, that cost. There's realistically probably nothing that is going to be built on this site. It's owned by the railroad. It's going to look better. It's going to prevent blight. It's going to prevent crime from going on in that area.
Thank you. It just seems to me that this is an obligation that should be taken over by the private. I'm concerned that, as I understand TIF, it's meant for infrastructure improvements and to remove blight, and this is not infrastructure offense as far as I can see. I'm concerned that TIF money is being looked at as a one comment by somebody in the newspaper, a piggy bank used by private businesses, and I'm deeply concerned about that. Thank you.
I was just going to make a real quick comment on that. As you can see by the photos, Trackside has been there for 18 years. They've invested heavily in the fencing, the landscaping, everything they've done to clean up the area. So this merely acts as a support on those funds that they have invested in that area.
Thank you. Any further questions?
I agree that their business looks very nice. Yeah.
All right. Councilmember Neese. I'm sorry, Councilmember Aguirre, then Councilmember Neese.
Thank you. I want to congratulate Trackside Auto for continuing to invest in their property and their environment. The railroad historically has not shown interest in developing their property through Billings, and there's no reason to think that they will in anytime soon. So I think this is an excellent opportunity to invest in that area and to brighten it up, activate the space so it doesn't look so dilapidated. Every opportunity to develop this area, I think would jump on that wagon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Neese.
Yeah, I agree with Amy. The railroad's object is to get to point A and point B. They don't care what it looks like on either side. So it's disappointing in a lot of respects. But Heather, real quick, I'm surprised. So the lease is going up for them because of the fence. Is that because their taxes to the railroad's going up for improvements? Is that what's happening there?
That is the railroad's position, yes.
Okay. And then, and again, this is that you guys require this specialized fencing. You can't have chain link fence in there for security. Do I understand it correctly? EBRD prohibits that?
Yes. There is one area of the EBRD that does allow chain link fencing, but that's just the industrial sanctuary on the east end.
Okay, and this is really to help give that this is the eBird, that you've just entered. It's kind of a signature of the area. So, and I agree with that. And so this is, you've done fencing before. I think you had 60% a couple of times, and then this one's 50%, which I'm hoping that you bring a program to us soon so we don't have to see these in the future. Is that something that you're planning on bringing to us soon?
It is on your agenda for June, I believe.
Great. And now I also was reading the minutes for this project, and it mentioned the frontage program. Is that also coming in June?
Yes, you will be able to look at those, tear them apart, change what you would like to change, and hopefully move forward with something.
Okay. I like what you, again, you and I've talked about this before. I like the fencing. It makes the place look really nice down there. And so I'd like to talk to you more about what's coming down the road. But for now, I'm good. Thank you.
Mr. Aspenleiter? Oh, Dr. Nicholson.
This increases the increment ever so slightly, but still an increase.
Historically, yes, but as you just said, slightly. The areas that we have put in fencing when you take down blight, it's more about the increase in viability to the neighborhood a lot of times than the increase to the increment.
All right, any other questions for our presenter? All right, seeing none, it's time for a motion. There is one. Mr. Kennedy?
I'll make a motion. I move to conditionally approve the tax increment financing assistance from eBird Tax Increment Finance District to Trackside Auto Body to fence the railroad lease property up to a maximum reimbursement of $19,137, recommended by the East Billings Urban Renewal District Advisory Committee.
I was going to call on Miss Aguirre, but Mr. Neese seconds. Let me ask next time. I know. Any discussion regarding the abbreviated motion that Mr. Kennedy has given us? Mr. Aspenleiter.
Yeah, this will be no surprise to Miss Doty because we've talked about this. I'm not going to support this. Actually, these are very small investments that really have zero return ROI that we require of TIF districts to increase the increment. Fencing projects and facade stuff maybe. Fencing projects really increase the increment at a zero rate. If that's one of our criteria, that's one of the things that we should be sticking to. There's no building on this. There never will be a building on it. It's railroad ground. It's even more of a reason that I'm not interested in investing tax dollars on land that the railroad owns, that they're never going to give property ownership to another entity on. So I just think this is a bad investment. I don't think it moves the needle. I don't think it's anything that really helps the eBird grow its increment, which is really what we're looking for.
Anyone else? Seeing no discussion, we'll ask for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed?
No.
No. Motion carries. It was Mr. O'Donnell, Mr. Aspenleiter, and Mike Nelson saying no. All right, item number 7.
Approval of strategic plan, mission, vision, and values.
Mayor and council, actually, I'm worried it's going to take me longer to pull this up than to talk about it. So actually, Denise is going to help me out. My 24-year-old got home today, and she's waiting to celebrate her birthday tonight. So that's good for Mr. Aspenleiter. So, as you guys are well aware, we spent a full day with staff and a second, well, I say maybe closer to half to 2/3 of a day with staff, and then the same thing the following day with all of you. to set the first components of the strategic planning process, which you'll tackle on October 1st. So just for your dates, as I asked you earlier, the last date in September will be a staff day. The first day in October will be staff and you guys. So that strategic planning process, this is the foundation. I think the conversation, I'm very grateful. The conversation was robust and serious. And so I will leave it at that. I do know that, as you said, as we're pulling up here, you got some feedback from the community. I don't think in any way, shape, or form any of the discussion was meant to remove the recognition of the diversity of our community, but it was to set a bold vision going forward. So I'm going to stop there and turn it over to you, Mayor and Council, relative to adopting the first step, the vision, mission, and core values for the organization.
Any questions for our presenter on the eve of the end of his career with Billings? No. Do we have
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Mayor.
Mr. Neese.
Yeah, I was ready to make a motion if you're ready.
I was ready to make a motion as well.
We're ready. Go ahead, Mr. Neese. Thank you for asking.
I move to approve the mission,
It's-
vision,
you got rid
and
of that
values as
loose
proposed during the strategic planning meeting.
Seriously.
Mr. Boyette, seconded.
I think you
Any discussion regarding the motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Dr. Nicholson.
I move we amend this by dropping the new vision statement.
We have a substitute motion. Is there an amended motion? Is there a second to that? Is there a second to that? Seeing none, I think the amendment fails. It takes us back to the original motion. Is there any discussion regarding the original motion? Go ahead, Ms. Gary.
Okay, so at the risk of sounding like I'm grandstanding, I'm going to deliver some DEI flavored perspectives. And I had to write this down because I have to organize my thoughts, and this is the best way I can deliver my message. I can say that while I'm a person of color, at the end of the day, I think others would agree that we just want to be able to exist in a space where we feel we belong based on our merit, not based on the color of our skin. Despite having been lovingly referred to as Billings' DEI princess, which kind of made me giggle, to be honest. I'm like, well, why has no one told me where to get my tiara? I first envisioned community with a capital C. So what that means to me is we regard one another as humans first. And being human, we all have special gifts and talents and backgrounds and lived experiences. That is what we need to focus on as community with a capital C. To Councilmember Shaw's point that she made in conversation on this topic, Billings has rejected an NDO twice so far. So the welcoming and diverse language feels at best insincere and at worst a slap in the face. So in my mind, this isn't an opportunity to shift our focus to the power behind the word community in and of itself. So in the strategic planning session, we looked at vision, which grows our mission, which establishes our core values. So with our vision, we had to be inspirational and envision our future. With our mission, which you can read it, it does include the word welcoming. And I think welcoming is a great word, and community can encompass all, everyone, and every walk of life. So that would define our core values, which you can read on the agenda item. So my point is, I do support this change with our mission statement, because I think community is far more encompassing of everyone who belongs here. I think if we start breaking it down into categories, it loses the power of the message. So in the word community, that encompasses all. That's my message.
I'm not going to say anything more because that was awesome. Thank you. Does anybody else want to try to improve on that? Because I'm not sure you can. All right. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Thank you, Dr. Nicholson. Dr. Nicholson is in opposition, but the motion passes. That moves us to our final public comment period of the evening. This will be on non-agenda items. Speaker sign-in is required. If you have anything to say that is not been spoken about tonight, please come forward.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Jeff Kettleson. I live at 489 South 44th Street in the 5th Ward. The reason why I would like to speak to you tonight is concerning the May 18th work session meeting when we discussed the Downtown Business Improvement District. The Downtown Business Improvement District is a district that has set boundaries. We learned from Executor Katie that approximately 1,040 properties were in this district, and it required 61% of the vote for the district to be ratified by the existing properties. She was very proud when she told us that the vote came in at 82%. That's great. You know, that's really a great thing. And if the property owners of that area want to spend extra money for extra services, that's wonderful. That's a great idea. God bless them. Here's the problem, though. The city of Billings pays into that based on the buildings that we have in this district. Now, you took the vote from the people in the district to prove it. Great. But what about all the people in the city that didn't get the vote, that you're using our money to go to that district? I think that's wrong. And as a citizen, it really disturbs me. Approximately at the 2-hour and 40-minute mark of the May 18th work session meeting, Katie, the executive director of the Downtown Business Improvement District, informed the city council that she entered into some type of agreement with our park district to obtain government assets, information that the city has paid for. Now, I'm not sure, but I've never heard that the city was selling data services, because the Downtown Billings Improvement District is a private entity. So I know that Pacer AI has special rules and regulations for government versus commercial. So if the city's buying this stuff and we're giving it to a private entity, what kind of safeguards are involved? Really, I think that our computer gurus should really look into this. But more importantly, you know, did he do it on his own? Did somebody give him approval? Was there contracts made? I'm not too sure about that. But that's for you people to look into. Anyways, thank you. Have a great day.
Further public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment period and move on to council initiatives. Mr. Neese, are you still there? I have an initiative? Nope. All right.
I do not have it. I do not.
Thank you very much, Mr. Neese. We appreciate that. Seeing no other comments or business, we are adjourned. Thank you, folks.